Hi, today and for the next 2 days, you'll be working on Lesson Two's lab on charge interactions. This video is designed to give you a quick overview of what to do in each of the stations for today's lab. Remember, you have 2 days to do this lab and need to visit all 5 stations. So today I'm going to give you a paper document. This will be a group document that you do with your group, and only one paper will be given for each group. My advice is that you keep this paper in the folders in the classroom. So after the first day, just tuck it in the turn-in folder and it'll be there for you tomorrow. That way no one takes the paper with them, loses it, or in the off chance they're absent, has it stuck with them at home. You should definitely take turns writing. Put your initials next to your work that you do, and I will give you collaboration grades based on the amount of work that each person does. So try to divide it up as evenly as possible and take turns writing. None of the questions in this lab require you to do a lot of writing. I just want to make sure that one person isn't doing all the work. So again, you have 2 full class periods to do the lab, and it is due at the end of the second day. There are no exceptions except for the case of someone who is absent. And if they're absent for a good portion of the lab, they'll have to make that up on their own time. So there will be 5 stations. Each station has its own worksheet in the packet. And I have enough stuff to make 2 of each station. So you'll see signs around the room. There's 2 station 1s, 2 station 2s, and so on and so forth. It should be easy to find a station to go to, but every once in a while, you might have to wait your turn if all stations are busy. If that's the case, just sit with your group at your normal assigned seats, and when the station you need to go to opens up, go over there. We still need to try to keep our distance from people, so please don't pile up at a station where 2 groups are trying to work from the same place. Okay, and you don't have to start with station 1. You can actually start at any of the 5 stations, and you just turn to that page in your worksheet packet and begin with those questions. So let's talk about each station individually. I'll give you some tips and tricks of things that I found that students find helpful throughout the years. So station 1 is pretty darn simple. You should have a balloon and a little cup with some bits of paper from the hole punch. The idea is that you just sprinkle the bits of paper on the countertop, and you want to make sure that it's just one bit of paper. Sometimes in the hole punch they get kind of clumped together. And just sprinkle them over the countertop. And you're going to rub the balloon on your hair or your shirt or your pants or whatever, and see if you can pick up different bits of paper. And the idea is you can try to figure out a way to pick up even more bits of paper. Some fabrics that we found work really well. Flannel shirts or any kind of like wool fiber are awesome. And then when you start to rub the balloon on different people's hair, that's optional. You don't have to mess up your hair. But we've found that certain people have hair that just has tons of static electricity. So that's kind of fun too. Station 2 is a station that it's kind of tricky, but if you get it to work, it's pretty darn neat. The original directions instruct students to run the comb through their hair and then bring the comb near a stream of water. So if you've ever turned on one of the sinks in my room, you know that sometimes the water comes out crazy fast, and you definitely don't want that for this lab. You want to have it just barely turned on so that the stream of water is continuous. You don't want it being drip, 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 but a continuous stream of water. And using static electricity, you can actually bend the stream of water. So you can certainly try it with a comb. The problem is we have to rinse the comb out after every time someone uses it. And if the comb's even a little bit wet, it doesn't work. So I have these plastic tubes, which you'll see in pictures in other stations. And you can actually rub the plastic tubes on your hair, your fabric, some of the fabric I have around, and bring it near the stream of water to get the same effect. So if you want to try the comb, if you found that someone's hair is just crazy staticky from station 1, feel free to try it with the comb. I have lots and lots of combs, so just make sure you wash them after each use. All right, station 3, tons of fun with station 3. Lots of different experiments you can do. You'll see me use these hanging pith balls in some other demonstrations coming up. These are pretty simple. This is just a really, really light kind of wood. I kind of think of like balsa wood. And these are painted, and they're on a string, just a really thin thread. And they're really, really easy to give electric charge to. And they're really, really light, so it's easy to move them with static electricity. Notice that they are not tied tightly around the ring stand. They should not be. This is so you can adjust them. They should always be very close, side by side. One shouldn't be higher than the other, but not touching. So if you need help adjusting, let someone know. The pith balls, if they're too far away from each other, won't interact in the way you want them to. You want them to be close enough so that they can attract or repel. So here's the acrylic tube I was talking about, or I don't know if it's not acrylic, it's some other kind of plastic. But someone donated these to me, and it turns out they work awesome for static electricity. So I have lots of different fabrics around the room. The fake fur is great for getting a static charge buildup. There's a variety of fabrics. But again, if you find that your shirt that you're wearing that day works great, you can use that as well. So you're going to rub different cloths on the plastic tube. You're going to charge the pith balls, follow the directions in the lab. Sometimes you want to just bring the tube very, very near to the pith balls or touch them. But at any time, if you touch them with your hands gently, that kind of discharges the pith and kind of resets it back to neutral. So if you feel like you want to start over, just gently touch each one of those and they'll return to their original neutral state. Okay, station 4 is the electroscope. You can actually make an electroscope at home. It's pretty cool. If we get a chance to, we'll watch the Bill Nye video where he makes one out of a peanut butter jar. But what we've got is, this is just a glass flask, and there's a metal rod down the middle, and hanging from this, it looks like a swivel from a fishing tackle box. But there's 2 pieces of foil hanging down, and the rod goes up through this stopper, and it ends here with this this metal charging ball. So you have a rod, and you have the fur again, because this is the best one. You can actually try it with different materials if you'd like. And the directions are going to ask you to bring this charged rod near to or touch the charging rod on the top of the electroscope, and then you're going to see what happens to these 2 little pieces of foil down here. Now, just like the pith balls, if you want to return the electroscope to a neutral state, you can just touch the metal at the top. But please be very careful with this. It's glass, it'll break, and do not take it apart. Please do not take the plug out of the top of this flask. Thank you very much. Okay, the last station is a device called an Electrophorus, and this is a tricky station, I'm not going to lie. We are going to look at some different scenarios in the physics classroom that are very, very similar to this station, and it always trips people up. It can be a little tricky understanding how the positive and negative charges line up. And we haven't quite talked about polarization yet, which is a concept that's going on in this station, but it's a really great way to introduce it later on. So an electrophorus is a device that can push positive and negative charges apart. And that's actually what polarization is. What we've got is a metal disc. So metal conducts the electric charges. And then if we want to move the disc, we need to have an insulating rod. So if you touch this stick to move the metal disc, it's not going to change anything. It's not going to neutralize this disc. Okay, the acrylic plate underneath this is what came with the kit, but I found that the tubs that we use for lab supplies works just as well. Okay, what your lab is going to tell you to do is to rub either the plate or the tub and try to build up a certain charge and then set the disc onto the plate or the tub. Okay. Um, to discharge the plate, you can actually hover your finger over it. You might feel a little bit of an electric shock, very, very, very faint. And this particular setup is super dependent on the weather. Now, static electricity, that's like the best project to do in the winter because we know in the winter things are dry and we have static on our clothes all the time. And it shouldn't be a huge issue. This would definitely not work on a hot, humid summer day. But if we just happen to be doing a lab and it's raining or snowing or it just happens to be humid, it can be kind of tricky. So don't give up. Try as many times as you can to try to get this to work. Even if it doesn't work, you can still answer the questions because you should know what should happen in theory. Okay, so there's just a few questions for Station 5. All right, so that is a wrap. That is a breakdown of each station. If you need to, you can come back to this video when you're working on your lab questions for any tips or tricks. I hope that you enjoy this. This is a great project with tons and tons of little hands-on activities like this, and we're just getting started. So have fun.